We're all kind of returning to work, and there's some worry, there's some anxiety, there's some stress that kind of goes with that, with everything that has been going on the last year and a half. Um, and so with that, like I talked about, this is just a statistic that, 54% of people are worried about getting COVID as they go back to work. There's some people that are just, worried about being out in public again, and a lot of different things, a lot of different reasons why this could be happening. So we're going to talk about that today, and everybody has their own reasons of why, this could be a worrisome time for them. So kind of wanted to talk about some do's and don'ts, and maybe even what the CDC talks about returning to work. We know a lot of this stuff now. If you've watched the news or scrolled Facebook or anything, you've learned a lot of this stuff in the past about washing your hands is an important thing, and hand sanitizer. So that's something to continue, and to have the feeling that that's going to help us to be more successful. One huge thing that we have learned that we didn't know early on in this situation is coronavirus isn't passed very much through what you touch. It's a very small percentage of how that happens. It's usually the droplets in the air from all the the research and things that I've seen. So, but that doesn't mean it's not good to wash your hands and sanitize. That's going to keep us from getting sick. That's going to keep us from getting the flu, all of these other types of sicknesses. So, and we want to be careful about touching our eyes and our mouths and all of those things. You guys probably have different procedures and policies at work for you to know about. And so if you haven't heard about those and you're just returning to work, bring those up in meetings, talk about those with your managers to kind of follow those things as well as you can. Face coverings, there's still some of that going on. I know, in going to the post office or stores, there's lots of people that wear them. There's lots of people that don't. And so you can have your own reasons for doing that. But the biggest thing is doing what you feel is best at this time, what you feel is going to keep you the most safe. Disinfecting things and cleaning them, like I said, these things are just going to help us to be as safe as possible and to stay away from all types of sicknesses, including the coronavirus. If you're sick now, or I think we have a little bit more urgency. It's a little bit more important to stay home if you are sick and to take care of yourselves. And I think jobs are a lot more accepting of that in our current state than maybe we were 2 years ago. If you are, you have family members that are sick and, could have the coronavirus, and that's something to inform your supervisor. And like I said, I think our world has changed a little bit in that way, that they may be a little bit more understanding. As much as possible, try to avoid using other people's things. And if you do use other people's things, make sure you're wiping them down or make sure you're washing your hands. I remember early on last year, I was helping another therapist, with some notes or something like that. And I didn't really want to touch their computer or their mouse or any of those things, especially because this person had been coughing. So things to think about that I don't think we might have thought about as much as we did in the past. So it's okay to feel different emotions at this time. Everybody's going to feel differently about returning to work and getting back to normal and going to movies and concerts and jazz games and all of these different things. Everybody's going to be at a different spot. You need to feel comfortable with the spot that you're in and know that that's okay, and if you're really, really worried about it, talking with us might be a great idea. We're here to help with all of that. Any of those emotions that you're going through, we want to be an important part of that. Talking to people, like I said, it doesn't have to be a therapist, but talking to people in general can be really, really beneficial in helping you. So one huge important thing for all of us during all times, whether it's having to do with a pandemic or or just anything in general, the best things that we can do for ourselves is to take care of ourselves. If you're eating well and getting a good amount of rest and exercise, and talking with people close to you and doing things that make you happy, then it's a lot less likely that you're going to feel stress. It's a lot less likely that you're going to get sick. It's a lot less likely that you're going to experience anxiety, depression, and all these other things. So one of the biggest things I'd want you to take out of us talking today is I need to take care of myself. We're going to talk about different ways to do that, but eating well, getting rest, exercise, those are three huge things to start with. If you're, in need of some help, then please reach out to someone. We're going to talk about some of that in the future with anxiety and depression today. But these are real things. They can be diagnosed and they can be treated. Anxiety and depression can be treated really, really well with counseling and other measures. So some of these things is knowing your rights, the CDC website, and there's other websites to make sure that you know what your rights are and what's going to help you to be safe, and what you should be and shouldn't be doing at work. So move into some CDC type of stuff. So as much as possible at work, you want to communicate with other people. You want to communicate about what's going on, and it's good to keep some distance between you. It'll be interesting to see when that happens, that we forget about that totally and we're back to normal, where we talk with each other close and we are in each other's space a little bit more. But right now I think it's we have a little bit of distance. So it's okay to identify those things that are causing you stress, and to talk with coworkers, talk with employers, supervisors about some of those things. And maybe there's some things that you do differently. Maybe, you guys are used to having a meetings, and everybody's right there, right next to each other. Maybe we step away from that a little bit. Maybe we create a little bit more room. Maybe we do it over Zoom, whatever it is. But talk with your employer about those types of things. A huge thing we're going to discuss today is controlling what you can control. I talk about that a lot in counseling with people here in my office, about, there's a lot of things that we worry about, that there's not a ton that we can do about them. And so coming up with the things that we can do and putting our effort into what we can do, rather than worrying about things that we can't do. And that's an easier thing said than done, for sure, but we'll talk about how to do that a little bit. This kind of goes into a little bit more of, developing this consistent daily routine. And, I think we all used to have, 2 years ago, we had routines that we followed, and people do really well with routines. Then we had this coronavirus stuff happen, and we were at home, and lots of different things were happening. And some people might have been at work, but some of their coworkers weren't there. And so just scheduling this routine kind of got thrown out of whack, and now we might have got used to that, and now we're going back to work. And so now we need to get used to this new routine and setting yourself up to be successful. I know there's been things that have changed for me, and there's, beyond just a pandemic, you could have kids could be going to school, you could have just had a baby. All of these different things kind of throw a wrench in your routine. So as much as possible, you want to try to put some effort into making a routine that you feel really, really good about. Some things that go with that is, sleep's obviously important. So having a regular schedule, taking breaks, at work or at home or wherever it is you're working, taking breaks is truly important. Spending some time outdoors, getting that vitamin D is an important thing, and that's going to help to uplift our spirits even in stressful times. And the same thing, if you're working from home still, even if you're at work, try to keep work away from home things as much as possible. And so if you're at work, when you leave work, that's home stuff going forward, and try not to let work kind of take over. If you're working from home, then have some separate times that I don't think about work anymore past 5, or I set myself 30 minutes to review emails at 8 o'clock. But other than that, I don't do, work stuff. Mindfulness is a huge thing that seems to help people to reduce stress and to feel better about their lives, and to have a lot of great things happen. Mindfulness is getting bigger and bigger, and seems to have a real big benefit for people, in our days. So another huge thing is doing things that you enjoy, and it's an important thing. We'll talk about that a little bit more today too. So, being informed about COVID-19, I think to some extent, we became too informed. Some people could, have watched, the news all of the time or read stuff all of the time. And I would tell you, if that's important to you, then make a time, once or twice a day that you can do that. But the rest of the time, do other things, whether that's work or things you enjoy or being outside or exercise. But don't constantly be looking at the news. There's probably things that we don't need to know as much about, whether that's things in other countries or things that aren't necessarily affecting us, in that moment, that maybe we don't need to know every second of the day, and we can know once a day. So we still all have a crucial role in this. It's still around. It's not, coronavirus and sickness in general and stress and anxiety, to some extent, those things are probably never going away. And so the way that we can manage them, the way that we can be successful with them is going to be truly important. So that's why we do presentations and things like this. And so connecting with others is going to be a truly important thing for you, whether that's people at work, whether that's friends of yours, whether that's a significant other or kids. Tons and tons of different ways to get a hold of people, phone calls and Zoom and text messages, and people are meeting in person a lot more. And, do what you feel is safe, and if you're really worried about it, then, really look into what the CDC is saying about what is safe, and I think, whether that's masks or non-masks or being outside and all of those things. And I think we're seeing some real progress in what we can do. And so I think we all should be pretty excited about that, light at the end of the tunnel type of thing. Helping others is truly one of the best things that you can do. There's people that write books and things about, well, what causes happiness, and does research on that. And one of the 5 main things that causes people to be happy is a random act of kindness every day. So doing something that shows people that you care for them. It could be simple. It's sending a text to your mom or to your husband or wife or whoever it is, and thanking them for being great, thanking them for cooking you your favorite dinner. It could be opening the door for somebody. It could be letting somebody in traffic. All of these different things. But one of the most important things that we can do is look for opportunities to do something good every day. Huge impact on them, but even a bigger impact on us. If you're struggling with, alcohol or drugs or anything like that, please reach out for help. Like I said, this can be a stressful time for a lot of people. Same thing with mental health type of things. That's why we have EAPs. That's why counseling is around, is to help with these things. And EAPs are there to help before they get to be this huge thing. Hence why we'll work with anybody. They don't need to have any diagnosable issue. So please reach out if you need to. So a couple final facts about COVID-19. Something for even in the height of the scariness of COVID-19, most people, our immune system is going to be able to fight off the virus. And we've all heard stories and seen things on TV that some people haven't made it, or some people have gotten really sick. With that, some of the statistics back up that people that have got COVID-19, 99% of them survive. And I would assume that number is getting up even higher now. And even out of the people that get it, only 92% of them actually go to, have to go to the hospital. So really, so pretty much it's the opposite of that. So only 8% of people that get it have to go to the hospital, is what I'm trying to tell you. So there's simple things that we've heard. I don't need to go over washing your hands and wearing a mask, and getting the vaccine is something that we've all heard. It can be really, really beneficial. So that's one thing that I would support, but these are personal decisions that you need to make for the best for you guys. So there you have it. Those are some facts and everything about what the CDC says about COVID-19 and how to be good with that. And so I want you to remember some of those things while you're at work, and remember that we are making some progress, and there's reasons that the world is opening up again, and that we can feel some safety in that. So I told you guys we're going to talk about what we can control. And this locus of control is an interesting idea that we talk a little bit about in counseling. And so people that have this internal locus of control, so I make things happen, I look what I can do, I can determine my future. Those people are a lot happier and a lot more successful than people that think, why do I bother? Why does everything bad happen to me? There's nothing I can do about my future. So that's kind of this external locus of control. So everybody else controls what happens to me. Whereas this internal is going to set us up for a lot more success. So some things you can control, you can control your mindset. You can control what you think. Things are going to pop up for you, but you get to decide what to do with that. We can control our diet and how much we sleep and what we say to ourselves, and the type of person that we are. And if we are doing those random acts of kindness, we can control, exercise and what we do with that and how that helps us. We can control our activity on social media. When all of this stuff happened, social media turned out in some ways to be a positive thing for us, because it connected us with others and it helped us to bond with other people over social media. Whereas before, we were getting to the point of, hey, we really need to monitor how much we're on there and what we do. We're probably getting back to that point of, social media. We need to make sure that that's a part of our lives if you want it to be, but it's not a major part. There's a lot of other things that are more important than social media in different ways for us. So you get to control how you spend your energy and who you're with. And this one kind of, this picture kind of demonstrates, well, what can I control in kind of a pandemic type of thing? I can control, my own social distancing. I can control the things I do at my house. I can control getting outside and exercising. What I can't control is what everybody else is doing. I can't control, what the president does at these different times. I can't control what other people do, but I can control me. And you're going to be a lot happier if you focus on that, on what you can control and the benefits of that for you. So let's talk about stress a little bit. If anybody has any questions, please post them in the comments, or you're welcome to speak up if you would like. If I see any comments, I'm happy to discuss that, or you can save them to the end and we can talk about them then. So stress is something that in the past we thought about, hey, we need to take stress away. We want to have no stress. And it turns out that was kind of detrimental, because life is stress to some extent. Relationships and jobs and money and even a lot of really positive things cause stress in our lives, and stress can be motivating. Stress can also be very difficult. If you're in a constant state of stress, that causes a lot of difficulty on our bodies. I've seen some statistics that say 70 to 90% of the reasons why we go to the doctor is because of stress, because of that kind of wear and tear of everyday life. And so the more we can manage stress without trying to, fully get rid of it, because it's not possible, is really beneficial for us. It's helpful for you guys to think about, well, what does stress do? What does it do for me? How does it make me feel? Does it give me headaches? Does it make it so I can't sleep? Does it make it so I can't handle as many things? All of these different things happen because of stress. Does it make me feel negative about my relationship or my job? Why would my relationship struggle if I'm stressed? And so the more you know when you're stressed, the more you're going to be able to handle it and do things that might be beneficial and might help you in that time. So I told you, that stress can be good. I want you guys to think about that a little bit. Has there ever been a time in your life where stress has been good, or a positive thing for you? So as you think about that, the good type of stress is called eustress, and the difficult stress is more of a distress. This eustress is things that are more moderate, or more things that we can interpret as being beneficial. It's most likely going to be short term. Maybe I can handle it for this amount of time. It's not going to take forever. It's not an unlimited amount of time. We perceive it as it's within our coping abilities, makes this stress possible as a eustress. It can be motivating. So like a deadline, can be motivating for us to get this done. Some people say, well, I work better on deadlines. What they're telling you is they work a little bit better under stress in their minds. So to some extent, this can focus, your energy and what you're trying to do. It can feel very exciting to accomplish these different things, and it can improve some of your performance. And so this is where the stress can be a eustress, a very positive thing. Okay, so on to this eustress or distress. A huge thing to kind of think about with this is our perception is what determines, is this going to be a stressful event, or is this going to be this distress or this eustress type of idea? So how we perceive it. So do we see it as a challenge that we can overcome, or is it an obstacle that we can't do anything about, that we can't get over? And that's when it becomes a problem. Stress in general is when it becomes something that we're stuck up against it, that there's nothing that we can do about it. And sometimes that goes into that control what you can control. If you're trying to control someone else and you don't make the decisions for them, that becomes this big obstacle that there's very little that you can do about, and can become a big problem. So I like to think about this kind of in a reservoir idea. So a reservoir, just like this pitcher, is there to hold a healthy balance of water. If it's letting out too much water, then it's going to get to the point where it's not doing its job as a reservoir, and it's going to look like a desert. And so you have to have these things kind of balanced out. So you're always going to have water coming out of a reservoir. That's just like stress to us. We're always going to have some stress, but we need to have things going back into our reservoir. We need to have water going back in. So, on a reservoir, maybe that's a river that goes into it. Maybe that's, rain or snow or snow melting. All of these different things go into a reservoir. For you, you have to have a lot of things that go into your reservoir. And those simple things, 5 simple ones are, sleeping, eating, getting some exercise, talking with people that feel like you can trust, that believe in you and that you believe in them, and that they're a good support to you. And then doing some things that make you happy, big and small things. So going on a vacation can be a great thing to look forward to. There can be lots of little things. If you like to crochet, or you like to exercise, or you like to ride your bike, or whatever it is, it doesn't matter really what it is. What matters is that it makes you happy. And so I want you really to look for opportunities to find things that fill up your reservoir and cause you to reduce stress. Like I said, those five that I told you in the beginning are hugely important and have an impact on all of our lives. You know, sleep, eating, exercise, talking to people that support you and you support them, and doing things that make you happy are a very, very important part of our mental health. Um, so we want to move into talking about some anxiety. If you have any questions about stress or the reservoir idea, please let me know. One other thing that I like to talk about with the stress kind of reservoir idea is when you're filling up your car with gas, I want you to think about, okay, well, how full is my gas tank? How full is my ability to deal with stress at this point? If I'm at a 10, I'm dealing with stress really, really well. And that's because I'm doing these things that help me to reduce stress. If I'm at a 1 or a 2 or a 3, there's probably some more things that I can do to fill up my reservoir. And I would want you to think about those at that time. So we're going to talk about anxiety and depression a little bit. Anxiety is a medical condition, you know, and these are some of the things that can happen with anxiety: this nervousness or fear, apprehension, worry. You know, it's kind of, it's not being able to turn your mind off to some of these things from sometimes. You know, a little bit of anxiety is very important for survival. It keeps us from doing stupid things or things that we probably shouldn't do, because we have that thought in the back of our head: is that going to be a good idea? Am I going to be safe if I do that? Your brain and your body is set up to keep you safe. So it's set up to have a little bit of the emotion, anxiety. So a little bit is good. When it is out of proportion, when it's taking over your life, when it's making it so you can't go to work, or making it so you can't spend time with others or enjoy your life, that's when anxiety is taking over and it's kind of being blown out of proportion. So just to show you that anxiety is a difficult part of a lot of people's lives, is it, you know, it affects 40 million adults is one of the statistics that we've seen. So, you know, 18% of the population will experience, you know, an anxiety disorder, you know, at that time. One thing to think about with anxiety is it's very, very highly treatable, but only about 37% of people go in to get some treatment for it. So we would love to, you know, have that much higher so that we can reduce a lot of anxiety in the world. So here's some symptoms for you guys, just to kind of see if anxiety is causing you, you know, a lot of trouble. And like I said, you want a little bit of this is probably okay. You know, when it's lasted for 6 months and it's overwhelming, that's when it's turning into a little bit more of an anxiety disorder. So something to think about. A couple to point out is, you know, racing thoughts, or, you know, an increased heart rate, you know, so a lot of fatigue, you know, kind of feeling like some impending doom. I've talked to people about that, you know, especially during this coronavirus type of stuff. So got on here how to move from fear to logic. I think this is kind of a good thing. We kind of talked about how our brains are set up for survival, you know, and there's good reasons for that. Your amygdala is set up to keep you safe. It is constantly scanning the world for scary things. And that was really, really helpful in the past and can be really helpful now. But when a saber-toothed tiger was jumping out to get you, your brain had to take over and get you out of that spot in that moment. Currently, we don't have a ton of saber-toothed tigers trying to get us. We have other things happening. We have work events. We have communication with our significant other. We have kids doing things. And so our brain is scanning the world and sometimes overreacts to these things that don't have to be that big of a deal. But it's doing that to keep us alive, to keep us safe. So your brain scans for that. So you have to do things to calm your amygdala. So anxiety comes from two different spots. you're in your brain. Amygdala, where it just kind of happens because it's scanning the world for difficult events. And then there's your cortex, who that's where you think through things, and so sometimes if you have a lot of negative thoughts or a lot of anxious thoughts, those thoughts can lead to sparking your amygdala to get you pretty worried and upset. So there's a lot of great information about that, and we could do hours and hours of presentations on anxiety. But so some things I want you to think about with this is, so we want to shift our brain, back to this rational thinking rather than survival. So one of the first things to do is kind of become self-aware of how you feel. How am I feeling in this moment? And it's okay to validate yourself. If going to the store and seeing people without masks is difficult for you, that's okay. It's okay to validate that that's a little worrisome for you. For the last year and some time, everybody's worn masks. The people that you've been around have done that. And so people without them, that's different. That's a new thing for you. And so it's okay to have a little bit of anxiety about that. And just realize that's my brain keeping me safe. So this closing your eyes and taking 5 deep breaths and thinking about 3 things that you're grateful for, you're doing that to calm your amygdala down, because it's overreacting in that time if it's causing you a lot of anxiety and stress. And we want to calm it down and let your brain know that, hey, I am safe, even though this seems like a scary thing. And so you do that by what you do with your body and calming your body down. So deep breaths is an important one. We'll talk about a few more that work with that. And this one's not really doing with thoughts. This one's, all about calming your body down. And then we start on the thoughts. And so we want to engage that rational part of your brain. And we do that by calming you down. And then we think about, okay, well, what has triggered this? Is there anything that I can do right now to deal with this situation appropriately? So I'm in the store, I see people without masks. Maybe I take a couple deep breaths, as I'm going. Maybe one thing that might keep me safe is I'm going to try to keep my distance from people. I'm going to try to stay 6 feet away from them. I'm going to monitor that, because I feel like that will keep me safe. And so it's okay to do some of these coping skills that you feel like would be beneficial. So if you have any questions about anxiety, like I said, we could spend hours talking about anxiety. It's just kind of a brief overview, and we're going to talk about some more skills at the end to help. But on to depression. So depression is also, yeah, go ahead.
Before we move on, we have a couple questions. So
Yeah.
This one's kind of from earlier. So sorry about that.
No,
Is the COVID vaccine mandatory at work?
Is the COVID vaccine mandatory at work? I think so. That's going to be separate for every person. I can tell you what it's like for my work. The answer is no, it's not mandatory. I think we would want everybody to get it, but they're not making people get it. So your work could be different than that. That would be, you'd want to talk to your supervisor about that.
Okay. And then the next one is, what are some signs, or how do we know if we are stressed? And I'm not sure if you already answered that.
Yeah. So those, for one, I'd want you really to think about that for you. What is the signs that I'm stressed? Because it could be different for everyone. For me, I can tell you what it's like, and I'll give you some ideas for some other people. But for some reason, I get like an ache in the back of my left shoulder blade can show me I'm stressed. People will talk about, well, I can't sleep as well. Maybe my heart rate is speeding up. Maybe I'm not able to think about one thing at a time, and so that can mean that I'm stressed. But for you, there's probably 20 or 30 different things that show you that you're stressed. And I think it would be great for you guys to maybe even put in the comments, of these are ways that when my body is stressed, these are things that happen to me. Maybe I'm short with other people. That's one way to know that I'm stressed. And so lots of different things like that. But like I said, feel free to make some comments about that so that can help other people. So.
Okay. And then, like someone said, just to follow up with that, if I'm going to the store and it looks packed, I go to a different store or decide I can wait for a less crowded time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But one of the other questions was, do you believe that humans evolved to deal with today's anxieties and fears? And in parentheses, they put survival. And is it an automatic response just like we used to do with wild animals?
It's a good question. You'd have to talk to somebody smarter than me to talk about what we've evolved to be able to do with that. But I would say that I don't think that we have totally kept up with how to be able to do that. Hence why, maybe anxiety and depression and all those things are going up higher and higher. Um, I think that we need to learn how to do those things successfully. And those things are things that, should be taught at school and should be a real important part of our society. And I don't think they have been that way as much in the past. And so I think they're all going up, and we need to find out ways that are helpful for us.
Okay. And then one more question and then you can move on.
Okay.
Which I think this is a good one. How do we help our kids with the stress since for a year they have had to wear masks at school and the last week of school they don't need them?
Yeah. So interesting. Like I said, everybody can have their own different thoughts on why they did that or what their thinking was. I think that first part of our presentation that we talked about, how to keep yourself safe, and then the facts about it, I think are important to talk about. Facts about, for one, okay, well, let's talk about how many kids are getting it. Let's talk about what happens to kids when they get it, and obviously you want to be, talk with their maturity level about that with them. But I think it can be very beneficial to know that, kids get through this pretty easily, and there's really not a lot of issues with that. And there's a lot of smart people that are making these, coming up with these ideas about what kids should be doing. Like I said, I think that is an interesting idea about why kids are, for the last week not having to wear masks. And that's something that you need to decide individually, what should I do with that? Most likely kids will be able to handle it. You can talk about, some coping skills with them and some ways to deal with the stress. And if it's too overwhelming, then I mean it's just a week left and maybe we don't need to go to school. If it was too overwhelming, I would hope that it's not. And talking to somebody at Blomquist Health might be a great idea if somebody's really, really stressed out about that. Okay. But I would say for that last one for sure, even reviewing with them those first couple slides, the first, maybe it might have been 6 or 8 slides, kind of about the CDC and everything, about how to keep yourself safe would be a great thing for kids that would be worried about it. So, okay. We're going to talk a little bit about depression and then some coping skills, and maybe we'll have some time for some more questions. Thank you very much for those. Those were great. So depression wise, this is people that are discouraged, sad, hopeless, unmotivated to things that used to be important. All of us will feel these feelings from time to time. And if it's just for a short period of time, or I'm just having a hard day today, that could be more of the blues and might not be a big depression. You wouldn't be diagnosed with depression. So these are stress, anxiety, and depression. We are all going to feel those at times. It's very, very normal. So I don't want you to feel like, hey, I'm going to really struggle. I'm going to have this the rest of my life. If it's something you've had for a couple of days or a week, come in with some Blomquist and we can work through that. Or start talking with your family. Start really working on that reservoir that we talked about. So if it lasts for more than 2 weeks and starting to interfere with daily activities, that's when it can start to turn into more of a depression disorder. Depression is very, very treatable. but it does have a big effect on how we feel, how our body behaves and functions, and all of those things. So let's just talk about who it impacts. It impacts a ton of people too. So 15.7 million adults over 18, and then a lot of kids. And I would tell you these numbers are up from this. Maybe even double of young children and and teenagers. I know that they're experiencing that from talking and working with people. So some symptoms for you guys. So like I said, so these need to last for at least 2 weeks. The sadness, anxiety, irritability type of thing, worthlessness or guilt, changes in sleep, so you're going to have multiple of these for you to ever have some type of diagnosis with depression. Suicidal thoughts is a scary one that we have in our society, and sadly I talk to lots of people about nowadays. So that's getting to become more and more normal in our way of thinking, and so we'd like to reduce that as much as possible. So depression, very, very treatable. The sad part, this bottom paragraph, this is the sad part about depression and mental health in general, is most people that have some depression or anxiety, they wait 10 years before they do anything about it. And by then, it's turned into something much bigger. It's turned into this diagnosable depression that I've lived with for years, and it's a lot harder to work through. Whereas, say it's been a month and I haven't been feeling very good, let's get you some help. Let's do some things beforehand. Like I said, 80 to 90% of people respond really, really well to treatment. So something to think about. A couple little things for you. Stress management, we talked about that. That's one of the biggest treatments for anxiety and depression. Relaxation techniques, and so that's where this mindfulness comes in. That's where getting some exercise. If you love to walk, that would be great. Breathing techniques would be fantastic. Progressive muscle relaxation is an interesting one that we could talk a lot about, but that's all that is tensing one of your muscles for 5 seconds and then letting it go for 5 seconds. And you can work from your toes all the way up to your eyebrows on that. And as you do that, that's going to be something that's going to help reduce some of this anxiety and depression. That's one of the things that can help with that amygdala anxiety. One that helps with kind of your thoughts and your cortex anxiety is going to be more of that replacing negative thoughts with positive ones. The support network we've talked about a lot, and exercise. Those are things that keep coming up because they're so important. Let's see, I might have a comment that I want to get to. So what are some ways that we can approach people and suggest they seek help when we spot depression? What might that conversation sound like? So it's a great question. To me, sometimes it matters what your relationship is with them. So let's say it's a family member. Then I think the most important thing, and even if it's a significant person in your life at work, it's coming from, hey, I care about you, I love you, I want you to be okay. And I've noticed that, you seem a little bit down lately, or I've noticed that you're not doing as many fun things as you used to do. You're not excited about it, and I really, really want you to be all right. I want you to feel as good as possible. Do you feel like, is that the same thing? Do you agree with that? Do you feel like some of those things are happening? So you're coming from a place of love and caring and just saying, hey, these are some of the things I noticed, and I want you to be okay. I don't want you to go in with, hey, you need to go to counseling or you need to take medication, because people can get defensive about those types of things. If you have a conversation and you talk to them about it, and then it gets to the point of, have you thought about, is there any way that you've thought about getting some help for that? Are you at the point that you feel like maybe you would need some help? And then, you can say, I know, whether it's, hey, I have this EAP that you could go to, or I've heard counseling could be really beneficial, or, that reservoir idea, then maybe you can start to think about some things. But I wouldn't go in with it in the very beginning saying, hey, you need counseling or you need to be on medication. Talk with them, especially if you have a good relationship with them. So that would be my first suggestion with that. Hopefully that was helpful. So like I said, talk therapy can be really, really helpful, especially with other treatments. There's three things in my mind that I think are really beneficial. Exercise is hugely important. Talk therapy is right up there. And then a medication if it's more significant. In my opinion, I'd start with the top two first, exercise and talking with somebody. And if that's not doing a ton, then hey, let's start thinking about some medication at that point. You guys, this is your decision. This is your life. I want you to feel comfortable with what you do. If you want to go the medication route before those other two, more power to you. But I would suggest the others because, medications always have some type of side effect some way or another, but some people use them and really, really benefit. I have people in my life that use them and are, they're a lot better off because of it. So talk therapy can be very, very helpful. And like I said, a lot of progress can be made from that. Medication's a part of that, and obviously talking to your doctor about that, but it usually is going to take 4 to 8 weeks to get into your system and really start helping the way that it should. It's trying to balance out some of those chemicals. Some of those chemicals might make your amygdala calm down a little bit. So that's some of what it's doing. So you want to, even when you start getting better, you want to continue to take that medication for at least 6 months and make sure your doctor is very much on board with when you decide to go off of them to make sure that you're doing that right. So, okay, couple things for you. We talked about routines earlier. So a routine that's tailored to you is going to be the best thing that you can do in difficult situations and just in life. So waking up around the same time, having a morning routine that you really want to set up. Like I said, this is a topic we could spend hours on. Trying to stay away from upsetting news or work emails right when you wake up. Maybe there's some calming things, maybe it's exercise, whatever it is that kind of gets you started off right. Some podcasts or music, just some things for you. Journaling can be a good thing. Bedtime, same thing. We could talk for a long time about this, but some ideas for you guys to kind of think about with that. So sleep hygiene. So setting up, okay, well, when I'm going to go to bed, these are the things that I do to make sure I set myself up for good sleep. Maybe that's, well, I read a little bit. Maybe I turn off the TV or my iPad or whatever it is for a half hour or hour before I go to sleep. Exercise, I don't want you to exercise, too close to bedtime because that can keep you up. But getting some exercise throughout the day is going to be the number one thing that's going to help you to sleep well. So, avoiding caffeine, all of those types of things, reducing naps, throughout the day so that you can sleep better at night. This 20-minute rule is a good thing that, if you've been laying in your bed and you haven't fell asleep after 20 minutes, I would suggest getting out of your bed, going and getting a drink of water, trying to keep everything dark and maybe reading for a little bit, maybe doing something that's relaxing, that's going to calm you down, and then get back into bed once you feel a little bit more tired. If you stay in bed and you think about how much you need to do tomorrow and how I'm not getting to sleep, I'm going to be so tired, that can keep you up. So some questions for you guys. Starting off with some of these questions would be great. I don't think you have to think about all of these questions, but if any of these come to mind, like Heather said, she's going to send this PowerPoint out to you. You are welcome to take some of these questions for your own and ask yourself some of these in the morning as a good routine. What would I like to accomplish today? How am I getting outside today? Who am I checking on or connecting with? just some ideas of some questions for you. End of the day questions also could be really, really beneficial. What went well? What were 3 things I was grateful for? What random act of kindness was I able to do? How did I reduce some of my stress and anxiety at work? So some questions for you. I think these are great ways to end the night. Last slide for you. I'm going to pull out some of these that maybe we haven't talked about. So journaling, those questions can be a part of journaling. This safe place idea, that's why I put this picture here. If you were sitting on these rocks and you were looking out over this water into the mountains, I would want you to think of, okay, well, what do I see? I see the mountains, I see trees, and I see all of these things. Okay, what could I touch? I could touch the rock. I could probably touch some water. It looks like there's pine trees and snow. So I could touch all of those things. And what would that feel like? So what we're doing is we're using our senses to calm our bodies down. What could I taste? And what would be the different taste of these different things? You're imagining, you're visualizing, and this will really calm your body down. So calm down your amygdala so that you can make better decisions and relax. So different, using all your different emotions there can help to really feel better. And sometimes, just doing something to occupy your mind. I know I've gotten some anxiety in the past, and I can reduce that. And then I have to tell myself, now I need to think about something else, whether that's listening to a song or a podcast or anything else. So